What if I told you the US government has been studying unexplained aerial phenomenon for nearly 60 years, and top research universities are beginning to successfully replicate some of their more interesting properties? And they're doing it all right out in the open. Hold your answer until after the video. I think you'll agree it's true. In 1968, the US Air Force funded Condon Committee published an ostensibly unbiased study of the numerous UFO reports captured by the Air Force's Project Blue Book. Famously known as the Condon Report, it concluded, "Nothing has come from the study of UFOs in the past 21 years that has added to scientific knowledge. Careful consideration of the record as it is available to us leads us to conclude that further extensive study of UFOs probably cannot be justified." The Air Force took this advice and shut down Project Blue Book. The public report and dismissal of UFOs drove the topic to the fringes. However, just a couple paragraphs later in the Condon Report, there's a huge hint that only ET-driven craft are being dismissed here. Investigation into unknown phenomenon persists. We find there are important areas of atmospheric optics, including radio wave propagation and of atmospheric electricity, in which present knowledge is quite incomplete. These topics came to our attention in connection with the interpretation of some UFO reports, but they are also of fundamental scientific interest, and they are relevant to practical problems related to the improvement of safety of military and civilian flying. In other words, unexplained aerial phenomenon is real and should still be studied. And it has been. It's not called UAP in the scientific community, but instead ball lightning. Most assume it's a natural atmospheric phenomenon, but after 200 years of scientific study and over 2,000 papers written on the topic, it remains unexplained and practically no physical evidence has been collected. Still, most agree it actually does exist. It's just so hard to explain that some serious scientists, namely André Aleo, a theoretical physicist at the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Light in Germany, have speculated that ball lightning may be interdimensional in nature, with the spheres we see being just a 3D cross-section of something that exists in unknown planes. But let's start with the beginning of the US government's study of the phenomenon. In 1960, the Thermonuclear Division of the US Atomic Energy Commission published a preliminary report on ball lightning. The report acknowledges that the phenomenon is very rare and has not been directly observed by professionals, but nevertheless maintains that this does not detract from the unusual character or the many literature reports which indicate the existence of an extremely unusual plasma or gas discharge properties. In fact, it may have been sightings of the phenomenon near the Oak Ridge National Laboratory which prompted this report. The authors of the report surveyed all 15,923 personnel associated with the Union Carbide Nuclear Company in Oak Ridge and found that 3.1% of them had witnessed some form of ball lightning. Another impetus for the study could have been the introduction of plasmoids to the scientific conversation 4 years earlier by Winston Bostick. He had demonstrated how balls of plasma, particles in extremely high energy states, can be contained within a lab with magnetic fields. The notion that such plasmoids exist within our atmosphere, outside a lab, implies incredibly high energy densities within the ball. This led the authors to conclude, "There appear then to be valid reasons for surveying the field of ball lightning for physical properties related to a plasma or thermonuclear system in a static or even dynamic type of equilibrium." 54 years later, physicist Eric Davis would write another report on ball lightning for the Air Force Research Laboratory in Edwards Air Force Base. It's simply titled, "Ball Lightning Study." This paper categorizes the many attempted explanations for ball lightning over the recent decades. While many are interesting avenues of exploration, they have all failed to explain key aspects of the phenomenon. Davis goes on to explore 3 additional outside-the-box explanations for ball lightning. The first is a theoretical but prosaic explanation, Maser-Soliton theory. It proposes that atmospheric and magnetic conditions can cause localized natural microwave radiation to accumulate at a point, manifesting in ball lightning. The second involves exploration into something called the electromagnetic vortex phenomenon. There's little outside Davis's paper on the topic, and it has somewhat shady origins, stemming from NSA-sponsored research into non-nuclear energy sources at the elementary particle level. And EV phenomenon, according to Davis, may be just that. These microscopic vortexes seem to linger longer and discharge more energy than was put in. A potential free energy device. Of course, the potential of this phenomenon, if real, has not been realized. But nevertheless, Davis argues that ball lightning may be the EV phenomenon on a large scale. It's certainly an interesting possibility and an outside-the-box idea. Moving on, we might expect Davis's third and final explanation in this section to be the furthest outside the box. But unfortunately, these pages are completely redacted. We don't even get the section title. Davis's redacted third explanation might have been Professor Aleo's interdimensional ball lightning theory. The theory is impossible to prove or disprove, an advantage or disadvantage depending on your perspective. But I think there are other, more likely but just as strange explanations. Perhaps the most strange explanation is that these atmospheric plasma balls are literally a form of life. Try to suspend your disbelief. There's actually been extremely intriguing research suggesting that bits of dust can form coherent, double helix-like structures inside of plasmoids. These structures are capable of encoding and reproducing information very much like our own DNA. It's even speculated that the rings of Saturn may be a prime location for such life to evolve. Perhaps such life rides the solar winds into our atmosphere and beyond. Or perhaps what is seen as atmospheric plasma is simply the manifestation of advanced technology. There have been numerous recent technological advances that may have received their initial spark from ball lightning investigations. First are the recent papers regarding negative effective mass in plasmonic systems from Edward Bormashenko, head of the Laboratory of Interface Science at Ariel University. These papers aren't quite as groundbreaking as the title suggests. The negative mass is in relation to the acoustic properties of the plasmoids. It does not imply anti-gravity. But still, the acoustic properties are astounding. Most materials compress when a sound wave meets it. It's this series of compressions that propagates a sound wave through a substance. The plasmoids studied by Bormashenko react exactly the opposite. They expand to meet the sound wave, causing interference and elimination of the sound. Essentially, the perfect acoustic dampener, a high-energy acoustic metamaterial capable of eliminating sound. It's unclear what led Bormashenko to investigate plasmoids as an acoustic metamaterial, but it's not hard to make the connection with the silent flight that orb UAPs and ball lightning seem to exhibit. The other recent breakthrough has clearer ties to ball lightning research. As the conclusions of the preliminary report on ball lightning recommended, plasma and plasmoids have been continuously researched in regards to achieving, containing, and maintaining fusion nuclear reactions. These studies are typically done with tokamaks, powerful magnetic devices that allow scientists to confine plasma particles externally. Fusion reactions have been achieved within the plasma confined within tokamaks, but the power used to ramp up and contain the plasma has far exceeded the energy yielded from the nuclear reaction. But progress is being made. In 2015, computer models of plasmoids yielded greater understanding of the magnetic fields needed to control it. The next generation of tokamaks may come close to putting more power out than they get in. If that is possible and scalable, it would provide endless clean energy, likely creating an explosion in new technologies. And one thing that would likely be quickly iterated on is the tokamak itself. Once a plasmoid has a controlled fusion reaction within it, it could start to generate the magnetic field required to contain itself. This would certainly take some engineering, but one could imagine that the giant structures currently used as tokamaks shrinking down until they are almost non-existent, serving only to jumpstart a plasmoid before the plasmoid could create constraining magnetic fields internally. I think such fusion-driven plasmoid craft are likely Davis's third, redacted explanation for ball lightning. If that is the explanation, it isn't our technology. The phenomenon has been manifesting for thousands of years. But maybe we're starting to catch up. I hope you enjoyed this video on the underknown, still unexplained aerial phenomenon that is ball lightning. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing here at Rather Be Squidding, where I'll continue to bring you more and underknown stories in tech, science, and UAPs. And as always, thanks for watching.